The villagers screamed for her to stop. They warned her to stay away from the aggressive dog the German shepherd had attacked before. He was feared, chained, and labeled dangerous. But the blind girl didn't flinch. She walked straight up to the chained German shepherd and hugged him. What happened in the next 5 seconds left the entire village frozen. Life was peaceful except for one dark corner at the edge of the village. There, behind rusted iron bars and thick chains, lived Bruno, the German shepherd. No one dared approach. Years ago he had belonged to a hunter who vanished mysteriously. Since then, Bruno had attacked 2 villagers unprovoked. He was declared dangerous, cursed, even possessed by some. His kennel was reinforced with steel rods, and children were warned never to go near. People crossed the street to avoid his glare. The only thing louder than his bark was the silence that followed it. No one knew what haunted the dog, but everyone agreed on one thing. Bruno was better left alone. One quiet afternoon, a small truck rolled into Nandapur, its wheels crunching over the dusty path. The villagers watched curiously as a young couple stepped out, helping down a little girl in a pale pink dress. Her eyes didn't follow the crowd. Instead, they stayed closed, her head tilting slightly to the sounds around her. Her name was Aisha, just 10 years old and blind since birth. The family moved into an old cottage near the edge of the village, not far from Bruno's kennel. Aisha's parents were kind and soft-spoken, eager to settle into their new life. But it was Aisha who stood out most. Her calm presence, her infectious smile, her way of recognizing people just by their footsteps or voice. She never seemed afraid of anything. Other children hesitated at the unknown. Asia leaned toward it. What no one knew was that her innocence would soon touch a heart everyone else had written off. Few mornings after settling in, Asia sat quietly on the front steps of her home, her ears tuned to the world. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and then came a deep guttural bark from the distance. She tilted her head, listening carefully. "What's that sound?" she asked her mother, her brows gently furrowed. "That's Bruno," her mother replied softly. "A dog no one goes near. He's not safe." But Aisha didn't flinch. Instead, she turned her face in the direction of the bark and smiled faintly. "He doesn't sound angry," she whispered. "He sounds sad." Later that day, she asked a few villagers about Bruno. Most waved her off, warning her to stay away. "That dog's not right in the head," an old man said. But Aisha was thoughtful. She placed her hand over her heart and said, "I don't know why, but I feel like he's not what they think he is." At sunrise, when the village was still stretching awake, Aisha quietly slipped out of the cottage. Her small hands gently traced the wooden fence as she walked barefoot toward the sound she now recognized so well. Bruno barked, once loud and sharp, from behind his enclosure. The moment echoed through the still air like a warning shot, but Aisha didn't stop. From the fields, a farmer spotted her and yelled, "Girl, don't go near him." Others began to gather, fear rising with every step she took. "She's blind. Someone stop her," a woman cried. But no one dared get too close. Aisha paused just a few feet from the cage. She stood completely still. Bruno growled, his muscles tensed, eyes locked on her. But Aisha reached forward slowly and said, "I'm not here to hurt you." Her voice was calm, gentle. The villagers held their breath. No one had ever dared speak to the beast like that. Bruno snarled, pulling hard against his chain, his teeth bared in warning. Dust kicked up beneath his paws as the villagers shouted in panic. "She's going to get hurt," someone cried. But Asa didn't flinch. She stepped closer, her hand gently extended in the air, searching. Her face remained calm, her body unshaken. Then something unbelievable happened. Bruno stopped barking. His growls faded into silence. He stared at her, confused. Aisha took one final step, knelt down slowly, and opened her arms. "You're not a bad dog," she whispered. "You're just lonely, aren't you?" The entire village watched, in frozen disbelief as Bruno did the unthinkable. He lowered his head. Then he inched forward, pressing his snout softly into the girl's chest. Aisha wrapped her arms around him, hugging him gently. Gasps echoed from the crowd. The beast they all feared had just allowed a blind child to touch his heart. Bruno didn't growl, didn't pull away. Instead, he let out a deep sigh, the kind that seemed to release years of pain. His tail twitched once, then slowly wagged. The villagers stood in stunned silence, unsure if they were dreaming. The same dog who lunged at anyone who got too close was now lying beside a blind girl. Like a loyal companion, Aisha gently stroked his fur, smiling. "You're warm," she said softly, "and your heart is beating fast, just like mine." Bruno licked her hand, a low whine escaping his throat, almost like an apology no one could understand but her. Over the next few minutes, something extraordinary happened. Bruno followed Asia as she stood up, his movements slow and submissive. Not once did he bare his teeth. The villagers didn't know what to say. The monster they had feared for years had been tamed by a little girl who couldn't even see him. By sunset, the village buzzed with disbelief. People gathered in clusters retelling the story like it was folklore unfolding before their eyes. She just walked up to him, hugged him, and he melted. One man said, shaking his head. Elders debated over tea, some calling it a miracle, others saying the girl had some kind of gift, but no one could deny what they had seen. Meanwhile, Aisha returned to Bruno the next morning, guided by the sound of his quiet, excited whimpers. This time, no one stopped her. She sat beside him as if they were old friends. Bruno rested his massive head on her lap, eyes closing in peace. Children peeked from behind trees, watching in awe. Mothers, once terrified of letting their kids near the kennel, now watched with softened hearts. Day by day the once feared beast changed. But it wasn't just Bruno. It was the village that was beginning to change, too. One stormy evening, as dark clouds rolled over the hills, panic struck the village. A wild boar had broken through the nearby forest and entered the fields, snorting and charging blindly. People screamed and scattered. Amid the chaos, Aisha, unaware of the danger, wandered toward the sound of frightened animals. She had been following the rain, humming softly, lost in her world of sound. A villager spotted her too late. "Aisha, get back!" he shouted. But the boar had already seen her. It scraped the ground, ready to charge. Then came a sudden crash. Bruno. He had broken his chain. With a roar that split the stormy silence, Bruno hurled himself between the boar and Aisha. The two animals clashed in a whirl of snarls and fury. Bruno fought fiercely, protecting her with every ounce of strength. The villagers watched in horror and awe. Bruno wasn't a monster. He was her guardian now. Bruno's fur was matted with mud and blood, but he never backed down. With one final powerful lunge, he sent the wild boar crashing into a fence post. The animals scrambled away, disappearing into the forest. The villagers ran toward the scene, breathless. Aisha stood frozen, unharmed, her hands trembling as she called softly, "Bruno." The giant German shepherd limped to her side, panting, his body scratched and bruised. He nudged her hand with his nose and collapsed gently beside her. Tears welled in the villagers' eyes. The same dog they once feared had just risked his life for a blind child. Marking that moment, everything changed. No more chains, no more cages. Bruno became a village hero. Children approached him with treats and pats, and adults greeted him with nods of respect. But through it all, Bruno stayed closest to the one who had seen him differently from the start, Aisha. A few days later, a traveling vet visited the village to examine Bruno's wounds. As he gently checked the dog's body, his expression darkened. Beneath the fur were old scars, thin lines crisscrossing his back and ribs. "These aren't from fights," the vet muttered. "These are from beatings." The villagers fell silent. Bruno hadn't been born dangerous. He had been broken by cruelty, his pain mistaken for aggression. But Aisha, without sight, had seen what no one else had. A heart, still capable of love. Understanding dawned at last. Bruno wasn't a threat. He was a survivor who had finally been